In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brake hose on this Ford Ranger. Let's get started. Use a 19mm socket, take off all 5 of your lug nuts, and then remove the wheel. Remove the wheel. With the wheel off, you can see the brake hose right here. I sprayed it with rust penetrant at the top there where it connects onto the brake line as well as on the caliper. It is rusty, but it's not in too bad of condition. First, let's try to break free the fitting right there, right at the line. A lot of times what happens is the line will seize onto the fitting and it's going to want to spin the line with it. You want to try to avoid that because if you break the line, you're going to be making a whole new brake line. Like I said, this one doesn't look too bad. So let's put a flare nut wrench on it and try it out. I'm going to use a 7/16 flare nut wrench on it. The reason I'm using a flare nut wrench is because it actually grabs onto one extra side. And you can use an 11mm. For me, the 7/16 fit better. And I'm just going to try to break this free. I might have to hold that bracket actually with some pliers because it looks like I'm bending it. It is bolted on, but it's not part of the frame, so I am bending it. So because of that, I'm going to get some locking pliers right on the bottom here just so I can basically counter pressure my, my pulling force. Okay, so I broke it free, but it's breaking free the entire fitting with the line. So what we'll do now is take all this apart. We're going to remove the line off of the caliper and then take this clip off and then just spin the hose off of the line, leave the fitting as is. Moving to the caliper side of things, I'm going to use a 14mm socket on this banjo bolt. Break it free. Have a collection bucket ready to catch the brake fluid that's about to leak. To minimize the brake fluid loss, I'm going to pinch this brake hose, which I would not usually do on a good brake hose, but this is obviously the one that we're replacing anyway, and this will just stop the flow of fluid until we're ready to quickly swap it at the fitting. Finish removing this bolt, save the bolt. If it's in poor condition, get a new one. Don't reuse a bolt that is not able to hold the pressure of the brake fluid. This is a washer that you're going to have to discard. The brake hose will come with 2 new copper crush washers, so the hose will sandwich in between the 2 of them, so make sure that when you take it off, as you can see, this one stayed on the hose, this one stayed on the bolt, so remove it. There we go. This bolt is actually in good condition. I'm not worried about reusing this, so I'm going to set this aside, inspect the caliper area, make sure that there's no washer on here. Looks like I have some debris here, so I'm going to wipe that off. Try not to get it inside the caliper. There we go. There was a washer there. So you always want to pay attention to that. If it looks like copper, it's a washer. You want the new washer to have a perfect surface to seal up against. Now take a 10mm socket and unbolt this bolt that holds the brake hose bracket onto the frame. Now we're going to want to hold the brake hose very well and hold the line as well and spin the hose around the line until this comes off. Use locking pliers. Make sure they're hanging on nice and tight. I'm going to start by holding the fitting with an 11mm flare nut wrench, but I might have to switch to locking pliers on the fitting also. I have to get this bracket off of here. I want to move this bracket up so I can spin the hose without these locking pliers interfering. I'm going to take a pry bar, punch this locking clip off. There we go. Now hopefully I can unlock that bracket. Oh, there we go. Looks like I broke this free. All right, so with this up on the line, obviously we're going to have to remove this when the time comes to install the new brake hose, but now I can spin the pliers round and around as much as I need. So let's re-lubricate this. Maybe that'll help, hopefully. I'm going to put bigger pliers on this fitting, and there we go. Now it's doing what I want it to. Sometimes going back and forth will help because it'll loosen up the rust on the threads. All right, and there we have it. At this point, brake fluid will leak, so we'll have to be somewhat fast, as you can see. But there's the old hose. Discard this, remove your pliers if you use anything to squish it down, and let's quickly put the new one back on before we empty that master cylinder. Take the new line, and looks like we'll have to get rid of our pliers here for a second. Do not pinch this line. It will be damaged if you do. Just try your best to start it on here without cross-threading it. Okay, pretty sure I got it started. Yep, that's started for sure. Thread it on as much as you can, like this, and then of course we will hold it and spin it on nice and tight. You don't want a brake fluid leak here. That would be dangerous. Okay, that's pretty much bottomed out by hand, so let's hold that fitting, give this another half a turn so the bracket can be lined up with the frame. There we go. That's pretty tight. All right, let's mount that back on the frame quick. Make sure this pin lines up, snug it up. Take your 2 new copper washers, put one on the bolt. Then you want to put the brake hose through the bolt through the brake hose. Then the other copper washer, the brake hose will sandwich in between the two. Then line this up just like so. You want to make sure that it's lined up properly so you don't have any sort of issues down the line. Start this in by hand to make sure that it doesn't cross thread. And once you're sure, tighten it up with a ratchet. And then of course we'll torque it. All right, that's snug. The torque for this is 25 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Let's clean everything off. You don't want to confuse a potential brake leak for residual fluid, because if there is a leak, you definitely want to fix it. Pull the bleeder screw cap off, then use either a 10mm or 3/8 in my case, fits better, wrench or socket. Open up the bleeder screw. This will allow air and fluid to come out. Once no more air bubbles are coming out, that means it is fully gravity bled, and at that point you're going to want to do a manual brake bleed. But I want to wait for all the air bubbles to come out through gravity. It'll pull it down the hose into the caliper and up the bleeder screw because we want to get rid of all those before we complete the manual brake bleed. Okay, I'd say we have completed the manual brake bleed. There are no more air bubbles coming out. So let's snug this up and then we can perform our manual brake bleed. With everything completed, clean everything off. That way you don't mistake any residual for a potential brake leak. Once again, if there is one, you need to fix it. Reinstall the cover for the bleeder screw. Let's put the wheel on and you can take it for a road test. Let's get the wheel back on. Put on all 5 of your lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern so the wheel can seat properly, and then also in a cross pattern you want to torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Here we go, 100 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check it if you want. If not, take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.